Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Unrestricted Sports. Today, we are talking about the Eastern Conference of the NHL coming back tomorrow. I'm extremely excited to talk about this, despite the fact that my Red Wings aren't invited. But let's get into it because I think it's going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited for hockey to come back. Not gonna lie. We'll cover Eastern or Western Conference in a later video. I don't know if it's gonna be out before this one or not, but there will be a separate video for the Western Conference. But we're talking specifically Eastern Conference right now, and we'll start with the round robin with the top four seeds in the East, and then we'll move on to the qualifying rounds between the lower seeded teams. But starting out with the round robin, you have the Flyers, Bruins, Capitals, and Lightning, who are the top four ranked teams who will fight to be the number one seed to play the lowest seed, obviously. So, Brandon, I don't know how you want to take this, but I would imagine you just want to go team by team here and kind of just talk about what they have to bring to the table and how we think they're gonna do.
Yeah, I'm 100% down to do that.
So you just want to
So we're covering.
start with the Bruins then, because they were the best team to come out of the East this year.
Yeah, I would. I would agree with that.
Not
Boston, obviously.
they were the top to come out standings wise.
Yes. Standings wise, anyways. Um, Obviously, I think that the Bruins are clearly a very good team. I mean, they had 100 total points this season before the everything was shut down. 70 games games played. They had 44 wins and only 14 losses out of that. That's a pretty good ratio right there. They're clearly a very dominant team. Um, and obviously they have been making runs in the past, so I could definitely see this being their year. And I think they have all the pieces necessary to do so. They're definitely going to be the team, one of the team, if not one of the teams to beat.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. The only problem I see with the Bruins is how they did against Tampa Bay, Washington, and Philadelphia in the regular season. And they only amassed one win for each team, and they had to play each team 3 to 4 times. Obviously, a lot can change because they've had time off, um, and same with the other teams. But statistics are telling me that against these teams, they wouldn't have the upper hand. But I think a lot of that relies on Tuukka Rask, and then the play of Brad Marchand and possibly David Pastrnak.
Well, there's that, but also you have to consider the fact it's not like they were getting blown out in these games either. They weren't losing by very much to these teams. They were very close games, and when it comes down to it, playoff hockey is 100% different from regular season hockey because there's more on the line. I think playoffs in any sport, you're going to have even better showing out than in the regular season, and I think that's just part of the natural nature of being in that higher element of play, really. So I could definitely see. I mean, props to the teams who were able to beat Boston, like you said. But that being said, you know, they did also have to play all of those teams 3 times apiece. They aren't going to have to do that now because they've secured the top spot in the East.
Well, they've secured the chance at it because the four teams obviously still have to play to see who's going to be the
Yes.
official number one seed.
I think they pretty much have it locked up at this point, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say
They're 8 points ahead of the next closest team. So
well, the points don't matter anymore.
no,
It's all about the round robin at this point. But
I just think that the Bruins definitely have the biggest advantage going into that. So.
yeah, I would agree. I think barring an exceptional play from the Flyers and Lightning, I wouldn't see any other team possibly being the number one seed except the Capitals, and we'll cover the Capitals when we get to them. But I definitely think the Bruins are a very fit team to make a run and become the number one seed in the East.
All right. So next we have Tampa Bay coming out of the Atlantic. Same number of games played as Boston, but they have one less win. They have a lot less overtime losses, though. So that's one of the reasons why Boston is ahead of them is that Boston has 12 overtime losses, whereas Tampa only has 6. So there is that discrepancy there too that you might want to point out with the Bruins. However, that being said, wouldn't it be a cruel, narrative if, say, Tampa Bay not only wins the NHL, but they also win in the NFL? Now, that's a storyline that I think is interesting, and we'll have to see about that. But I think it could be an interesting season for pretty much everyone who lives in Tampa Bay right now. They have one already proven really good sports team and one football team who you're crazy if you think is going to go 8-8. So I think I think Tampa Bay fans are going to be in a good spot for this upcoming season for both sports. And I say upcoming season, I really mean, for the NHL's playoff time, but that's besides the point. I think Tampa Bay fans have a lot to be happy about here.
Yeah, the only thing I see wrong with the Lightning, their goaltending, obviously, Vasilevsky is Vezina Trophy winner, best goalie in the NHL last season, and was a finalist for the award this season. Super good, low goals against average, high save percentage. Got all the stats to tell you that he's a good goaltender. But my only problem with them is how the Lightning will handle the pressure. They lost. They don't. Steven Stamkos won't be playing. He practiced, but I don't think he'll be playing in these round robin games. But it'll be interesting to see how the Lightning can handle the pressure with the additions of Pat Maroon, Blake Coleman, and then obviously the bounce back year that Kevin Shattenkirk had. But then again, Lightning have shown time and time again that the pressure they face in the playoffs is so much that they underperform.
See, I disagree with that because unlike previous years, this team clearly performs well under pressure. Their power play percentage is fifth highest in the league at 23.2%, and their penalty kill percentage is 13th at 81.4%. So they're scoring more on power plays and they're allowing less goals on penalty kills than most other teams who are in this still at this point in the current state of the NHL.
Those are similar stats though to what they've had in previous years, where they've been considered to be a top team in the East.
I think it's different this year from what I've seen. I think that they are going to perform very well this year. I don't think they're going to choke.
Granted, everything I'm saying is speculation, but
combine that with the fact that
go ahead.
They have the 28th fewest penalty minutes. This team is not only able to handle the pressure, they're able to handle the pressure and not put their team in a bad spot. That's discipline right there, and discipline translates to not choking. If you're a disciplined team, you're not going to make mistakes like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that they're obviously, I think, like you mentioned, they finished first in the NHL for goals and goals per game average, but going against goalies like Carter Hart and Tuukka Rask and I'm forgetting the Bruins' backup goalie right now. But going against goalies like them, it's going to be interesting to see if they can continue that high level of scoring. Because I know all of those respective goalies have relatively low goals against averages.
You know what? Actually, I'm sorry. I actually misspoke there. I misread how my stat sheet was laid out. Tampa Bay is actually one of the worst teams in terms of penalty minutes. But the same thing goes for the Bruins as well. So maybe there's something to be said about that as well. That was my mistake. But yeah, I still think Tampa Bay is a very clutch team this year. I think that they're not going to have any problem in the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't know. I've said it time and time again, and we'll move on from them after this, but I just don't see their luck, I guess, is what I'm looking for. Their ability to handle the pressure. I just don't think it's there. But only time will tell. Similar to that of the Philadelphia Flyers and how they will perform. Philadelphia finished second in the Metropolitan.
I thought we were going to Toronto next. Since they're still in the Atlantic.
No, we're only covering the round robin right now. We'll move on to the qualifiers in just a minute here.
Okay, sounds good.
But the Flyers finished second in the Metropolitan with 89 points, 41 wins, 21 losses, 7 overtime losses, 1 point behind the Capitals. I think the Flyers are a super underrated team. To be honest, I don't foresee them doing particularly well after the round robin. Maybe not. Maybe even in the round robin, I don't see them doing well. But I will say that they've come up with what has been dubbed by most a franchise goalie, which has been the plague of the Flyers for the previous, several seasons. So I think the play of Carter Hart is going to be an extremely big factor. And I think it's interesting to note that the Flyers allow the fewest shots on goal. So knowing that the high powered offense that they're going against in Capitals, Bruins, and Lightning, I think it'll be interesting to see if Carter Hart can handle what I would assume to be more shots per game between them.
See, for me, obviously, yes, they did find a potential franchise goalie, I think. But that being said, I have to say that Philadelphia is not going to do well in these playoffs purely because I've seen what happens when Philadelphia wins a championship. It's intolerable. They don't know how to act. Let's be real here. That some of the things they were doing after the Eagles won the Super Bowl were absolutely wild, and I have to imagine it would be the same for the Flyers. With that being said, I would give the advantage to even Pittsburgh over the Flyers for how this is going to turn out, just because I think Pittsburgh is more disciplined. I think they overall have a better franchise structure, and they've been competitive for many years. I can't really say that about the Flyers. I mean, yeah, they've had their years, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I've never really been like they're a top tier team. The Penguins, that's a team that you can usually say, yeah, they're usually pretty top tier. They usually know what they're doing.
Flyers just beat the Penguins tonight in an exhibition game.
I know, but I still have to say I think that the Penguins are the better team. I just see it like that. I think that it was a single game. In a series of 7, if it was between the Penguins and Flyers, you'd be crazy to say it wouldn't be the Penguins who would come out on top of that. Obviously, you aren't going to have a series of 7 like that between them because just where they're located and everything and how the placement might end up and all this other stuff. But with that being said, I just don't see Philadelphia being competitive in this to the extent that the Capitals, Penguins, Bruins, and Tampa Bay, even the Maple Leafs, I mean, I hate them, but Toronto's probably going to go places too. So that's how I see it.
We'll finish up here with the Capitals because I don't like what you just said about the Maple Leafs, and I want to get to them as fast as possible. But just to finish on the Flyers, I completely disagree with you. And in the spirit of keeping the YouTube algorithm in our favor, I'll try to keep this short. But Philadelphia is a team that can surprise. Their biggest question mark, which is relatively surprising, in my opinion at least, is just their defense. Obviously, their defense is solid with Shane Goss to spare there. But besides that, there are very few weaknesses on this team. Their goaltending tandem is very good, so if Carter Hart needs to come out, Elliott can go in, and I don't see an issue with that. I think Philadelphia is bound for a surprise, but only time will tell.
Okay, well, who we got up next, Nolan?
Next up, we have rounding out the top 4 teams in the round robin for the East. We have the Capitals, finished top of the Metropolitan, 10 points behind the Bruins with 90 points, 41 wins, 20 losses, 8 overtime losses. Washington, I'll make this quick because I would imagine you would have a decent amount to say about Washington, but Washington is a team that is either going to do extremely well or really bad.
I disagree entirely.
Okay, let me know. What do you think?
So first of all, let's look at the Bruins. Whereas I think that the Bruins are going to be one of the top competing teams, I don't think that they're necessarily a shoo-in to be the best. The Capitals, keep in mind, they have 4 less overtime losses. Now, obviously, that's led to more losses, but I kind of see that as a team that kind of just got unlucky. There were probably a number of games that could have gone to overtime that just because of, one bad mistake or something like that didn't get there. And they only had 3 less wins than the Bruins. And they had 4 less overtime losses. So I see the Capitals being maybe even just as good, if not better, than the Bruins.
Okay,
Uh,
that's where I disagree with you. As much as I don't like the Bruins, I think the Bruins have a real chance at being a serious contender, unlike the Capitals. The Capitals had the worst goals against average in the league and the worst save percentage with Braden Holtby. His final 11 games, obviously he finished decent with a 5-3-2 record. But besides that, he was horrible. There were points in the season where Ilya Samsonov, their backup, who's a rookie, was being thought of to be the next starter to replace Holtby, who in the past several years, most notably, brought them a Stanley Cup. And of note is that Ilya Samsonov won't be going to Toronto to play with the team. It'll be Phoenix Copley.
See, this is what I disagree on. The Capitals, yes, their defense is a little suspect, but look what they're doing offensively. They're third in goals for with 236. Their shooting percentage is 10.7%, third best in the league, and their penalty kill is 82.6%, third best in the league. Or sorry, sixth best in the league. That's really good. They are a high-powered offensive team, and I think that their main goal this whole season has really not been. I mean, obviously they're trying to prevent goals, but ultimately they're able to overcome that with the ability that they have shooting. I think that their forwards are going to be able to dominate in this competition. 100%. I don't see us because if they have the puck, what are you going to do?
See, I agree. I think their offense is very high powered. Ilya Kovalchuk was added to the team via trade right before the season ended. Only had a couple of games to really show what Kovalchuk could do with the Capitals. And I agree that, like you said, their offense is very high powered. But I think those question marks on defense are just too much. Especially with the other offensive powerhouses.
Their defense isn't even that bad, though. It's only 15th. It's 15th best in the league. I mean, not the best, but it's not the worst.
That's halfway through the league. That's pretty. That's relatively speaking.
Offenses,
relatively speaking, that's not very good. I mean, yes. I mean, you could say, oh, look at the Kansas City Chiefs, or look at any other team that has a good offense that's not in hockey, and say, oh, look, their offense carried them. But there's a lot of times where most of the teams you're playing in the NHL, specifically in the playoffs, where you're playing against the other top teams in your conference, like none of the other teams have bad offenses. They all have very high-powered offenses. Obviously, the Capitals' offense is of note here, but it's not like the Lightning, Bruins, and Flyers are it's not like it's their first time playing offense.
I think that the Capitals are going to come alive here because I think that I mean, they have all the pieces. They've already won the Stanley Cup once. I think they're looking to do it again.
I don't see a repeat in Washington. And just so nobody gets mad here, the Washington defense has some good players, like John Carlson, for example. But overall, specifically their goaltending isn't the greatest, and that's where my issues lie with them.
All right, so moving on. Nolan, who we going to next?
Right, so we're going to move on to the qualifying rounds, where we will start with the Blue Jackets versus Maple Leafs matchup. Before we get into this here, I'll just mention they played each other twice in the regular season, and they each won once. So the Maple Leafs obviously finished higher than the Blue Jackets. Maple Leafs ended with 81 points. Blue Jackets ended with 81, but in standings-wise, the Maple Leafs are above them.
Listen, here's what I see with the Blue Jackets versus the Maple Leafs. The Blue Jackets only have 180 goals for on the season. That's one of the lowest in the league. So they aren't exactly what I'd consider an offensive powerhouse.
Yeah, I don't think there's question. I don't think there's question
versus the Maple Leafs, who have 238 goals for. I mean, they're gonna be crushed. Let's be real here. The Blue Jackets are gonna be absolutely crushed here. There's no chance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to count the Blue Jackets out just because of what they had done last season. Granted, they don't have Panarin or Duchesne this season, but I would definitely give the upper hand to the Maple Leafs. Like you said, Blue Jackets are nothing compared to the high powered play of the Maple Leafs. So I think this one was relatively short. I don't think there's much to really debate here between those two teams.
All right, up next, Nolan.
The next matchup that we have here are the Rangers versus the Hurricanes. They played each other 4 times in the regular season, and the Rangers won all 4. I will keep this short. I like the probability that the Hurricanes have. On paper, the Hurricanes are the better team. But I definitely see the Rangers taking this series. The Rangers, they have the talent for 1, and 2, they already have the Hurricanes number. Granted, it's hard to win. It's hard to win 3 games in a series, but the Rangers have already won 4. So what's another 3 more?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for me because it's really hard to say that a team is going to get beat that many times by a team that statistically is worse. So I feel like I have to give the advantage to the Hurricanes just because of that. Just because now it's they have to win this. They can't allow themselves to fall, and they can't make these mistakes that they made back during the season when it was proceeding normally. So there's even that additional tension, plus the fact that they beat you already 4 times. I have to give the advantage to the Hurricanes here.
You're giving the advantage to the Hurricanes?
Yes.
I can see where you're coming from.
It's not much. Because it could go. I really think that this matchup could go either way, but if I had to choose, I would say Hurricanes.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that. I'll give my 2 cents on why I don't think the Hurricanes are going to win this series, but I think the Hurricanes definitely, with who they have coming back, and Dougie Hamilton and Sammy Vatanen, I think that's a super big upside for them, and their defense is definitely not something to mess with. But, and I mean a big but, the Rangers, like we've both said, are 4-0 against them in the season. Artemi Panarin and Mike Zibanejad aren't slowing down. The Rangers were hot from January to March, and even February. They were 11 points behind the Hurricanes at the beginning of January, and then at the end of the season, or when coronavirus canceled the season, I guess, they were within 2 points. The Rangers, similar to the Hurricanes, are also getting healthier. They're going to get Chris Kreider back. So it's hard to look at the additions that they're all getting back and how the Rangers ended the season and in my opinion, not give it to the Rangers.
See, but the Hurricanes have the same advantage with getting people back and being more healthy and all the other stuff. So I still have to say it's advantage is slightly to the Hurricanes.
Right. I have a question, I guess, is who would you give the goalie matchup to? In terms of Hurricanes versus Rangers. It's most likely probably going to be Peter Mrazek for the most part and Igor Shesterkin.
Well, if we're going purely off of stats, the Rangers are the 23rd for goals against, whereas the Hurricanes are 9th in goals against. So if we're going purely off of stats, I give the goalie advantage to the Hurricanes 100%.
Yeah, I agree with you
disparity.
on that. They definitely have a good tandem with Mrazek and Reimer. I do think it's hard to count out anybody in the NHL really, but Igor Shesterkin I think is a super impressive rookie. He's 10-2 in his career in this season, and in his career I believe in general, and with relatively low goals against average and a relatively high save percentage. Not to say that he's on par with Mrazek or Reimer by any means, but I think there's definitely room for surprise there.
Mrazek is definitely one of the better goalies. So
are you just saying
can't
that?
count him
Are
out.
you just saying that because you missed out on him?
Well, we didn't quite miss out on him, but yes, he he's nothing to be laughed at. Okay, he's top tier. I think personally, I think he's a little underrated.
Yeah. He's definitely a locker room case, though.
I don't know about that, but
All
I don't know if
right.
I'd agree with that. But all right, let's move on. Let's move on.
So
Next video.
next up we got the Florida Panthers against the New York Islanders. In the 3 games that they played against each other this season, the Islanders took all 3. In what I would imagine to be a pretty boring series. Not to immediately count the Panthers out of this, but I definitely foresee the Islanders having the higher chance of success in this series.
See, I actually give this advantage to the Panthers because the Panthers, one, they have a better offense than the Islanders. And also, here's the big kicker. The Islanders went into this coronavirus shutdown on a 7 losing streak. So, not exactly the best situation to go into coming back now and having to play them when they've been able to get healthier. And I mean, obviously the Islanders have had the same advantage, but the important thing to remember here is that the Panthers do have the better scoring of the two. And I don't know, I just don't think the Islanders' defense is necessarily good enough to overcome that slight difference in offensive power. So I'd probably say Panthers. With a slight advantage. Obviously, with these lower ranked teams, it could go either way, but I'd say probably Panthers.
Okay. That's interesting. The Islanders have what is most notably for the Islanders a extremely solid defense. A very good penalty.
Solid, but it's not great
compared to who? We talking Florida?
I don't know, just talking like top teams. I mean, they're okay.
Well, yeah, compared to top teams, but compared to the Panthers, I mean, the Panthers' offense is they finished top in the league, top. I think they were the 6th best offensive rated team in the league, but you're going against I believe it's the 8th best defense in the league in the Islanders. 9th, my bad, but that's close enough to the point where the Islanders aren't going to take many penalties, and if they do, they have a very high chance of killing it off. But
here's the thing: the Panthers are one of the best power play percentage teams in the NHL too.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely fair, but
they're perfectly countering to each other. So, given the situation the Islanders went into the break with, losing 7, I give the advantage to Florida because Florida they were hot. They were on a 2-win streak and did so pretty convincingly. Whereas, it wasn't super convincing, I'd say, for the Islanders to go and, because keep in mind, they won against Montreal. So, they're here.
Montreal.
And they also won against St. Louis. That's pretty good. The Blues aren't a team to laugh at either.
Yeah, we'll get to them in the Western Conference video. But
so I because Florida beat 2 quality teams.
By no means do I think that this is going to be a 3-0 sweep for the Islanders, because they were close games when they played each other. But Florida lost Trocheck. Granted, they got Haula in return and another piece. I'm not really sure what his name is at the moment. But they don't match what Trocheck brought to the team. Granted, or not to mention even, that New York has the slight edge over Florida in just terms of playoff experience recently. So by no means do I think it's going to be a 3-0 sweep. It'll definitely be an interesting series. But I personally give the edge to the Islanders in this one.
All right. Well, we'll see. That was the last of our matchups, correct?
No, we got one.
I don't think we missed one.
No, we got one.
Oh, okay. I missed one. My bad.
The Canadiens against the Penguins. They played each other 3 times. Pittsburgh took 2. Montreal took 1. Pittsburgh finished the season with 86 points. Canadiens finished with 71. So a drastic difference between the teams there. You mentioned it. I'll agree with you this time on it. I think the Penguins are the clear-cut winner in this matchup.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt here. Penguins are going to destroy here. They are much better than the Canadiens by far. There really isn't even a chance. I mean, obviously there is a chance because it's sports and yada yada, but let's be real here. Look at the stats. This is going to be a nice warm up for Pittsburgh, if anything.
Yeah. It's not that the Canadiens lack in any specific particular area drastically. It's just that the Penguins are just that much better.
Yeah, and you have to also consider who's in the Penguins, or who the Penguins have been playing. They're playing some pretty high company here. So for them to be third best in the Metropolitan, I mean, that's really good.
Yeah.
So
if granted, I would like to point out the Penguins are suffering from a relatively large amount of injuries just with who they have injured. They're going to be without Crosby, Hornqvist, and Nick Bjugstad, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I always mess that up. But either way, I don't know how long those injuries are going to be for. But just know that they will be out. So that Penguins' depth is going to really shine, specifically in this matchup against the Canadiens.
Yeah, I think the Penguins are overall the better team. So even if they have to go down to their second line, those guys are still going to be competitive with, guys from the Canadiens, because the Penguins are just better. Okay, if we're being honest here, the Penguins are a much better team. So
yeah,
I think that one's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah,
right there.
I was just about to say the exact same thing. I would expect the Penguins to finish this series up fast and get ready for their matchup in the quarterfinals.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is all of our matchups for the Eastern Conference. Make sure you guys leave your comments down below. What do you think about this video? How do you think that your team is going to finish up? If your team is the Red Wings, then we got a good draft pick. Not first like it should have been, but third isn't bad. But make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It does help out the video a lot. And we'll see you guys next time.